Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome back. I hope you're all doing good. We're having lovely weather in Kakinada and Rajahmundry today. So enjoy the weather, enjoy the classes, concentrate. And as you all know, I'm K. Shailaja Rao, soft skill trainer from Aditya Global Business School, Surampalam. And today we're going to have a very interesting topic which I am sure all of you do a lot, but this is something all of us have to learn to do better than what we are doing. Let's see what it is. Before I give away the topic, let's watch a small video and we'll see what it is all about.
Listen to me. Like I do this all the time. If I go at the house where the door, that has his toys, and then that has all his toys.
Okay, but I have to yell at you guys.
Listen.
Okay, what?
Like everything they do at this house, they can't touch everything at Grandma's house.
Okay,
Okay, then what?
then you're not listening to me.
Then you're not listening to me.
I asked you not to do something.
No, but listen to me. Look, if you do something, if you get that thing off, you're gonna break it.
Okay, but I'm letting you know that you cannot. No, you're not listening to me. Listen to me now. Listen to me now.
Listen to me.
No, you're not listening. I said no cupcakes. And you try to get cupcakes and you try to ask grandma. Didn't you?
Look it. If we do something right off this, if we get closer, you can't even get them. You're gonna burn your butt.
What's gonna burn your butt? You and Kevin don't listen, so I have to give both of you guys pop piles in your butt.
But Papa's gonna give me peppers in your butt.
No, he's not. I have to. You don't want me to hit Kevin, or you don't want me to spank you? Why?
Because everybody wants to spank me.
Then I have to spank Kevin.
But he's made no pop-ups.
He's doing no pop-ups, but he doesn't listen.
But honey, look at this. Right now we can't do anything if we can't get everything out of the box. We're gonna break everything down.
I'm not breaking anything down. I'm just letting you know you cannot have cupcakes for dinner.
Linda, like this thing, I never belong to you. Anything, you can get anything.
I'm done arguing with you.
I'm not arguing with you.
You need to listen to the things that I say because I'm the mom and I'm the
Linda,
boss.
listen to me. All the time they get them this thing.
So, did you all enjoy that? So, what was the problem there? What was the little fellow arguing about? Okay, he couldn't even speak properly, but he was asking his mom to listen to him. And his mom was saying, listen to me, you're not listening to me. And he says, you're not listening to me. So that is the problem, right? We always feel that the others are not listening to us. And the others feel, or when somebody is speaking, they feel that we are not listening to them. So this listening bit becomes a big problem. So today that's what we are going to learn about or become aware of is listening skills. We're going to speak about listening skills. We're going to tell you what actual listening skills are and how to improve your listening skills. Because this is a very important topic which is not paid enough attention. Okay, so what is that smell? Okay, there is some smell, but I'll ignore that and go forward, move forward. So today what we are going to do is listening skills. I'm sure you enjoyed that, how that little fellow was arguing with his mom that she's not listening to him, and how the mom was saying, you're not listening to me. So this is the biggest problem all of us have. We do not listen enough. So let's go to the next slide. Listening skill. So this is one of the most important skills for any communication to happen. even before we speak, we need to listen. Right? If I can give you an example, how did you all learn Telugu? Any language for that matter. If your mother tongue is Telugu, whatever your mother tongue is, how did you learn to speak that? You learnt it as young as you were, maybe 2 or 1.5 or 1, I don't know how quickly you started speaking, but how did you learn it? Because you were listening to it all the while. At home you heard your parents speak, you heard, if you had siblings, you'd hear your siblings speak. Whoever comes home speaks the same thing. So you listen to these words all the time. And that's the reason you're able to pick up those words, your brain absorbs all these things, and then you're able to speak quickly. That's the problem when we come to speaking in English, because we do not listen enough to the English language. We have trouble speaking, because whenever we trying to say something, we only get those words that we listen often. And what do we listen often? We listen to Telugu words and we do not listen to English words. That's the reason we have trouble. Is it okay? Okay. So we have trouble speaking in that language. So listening is a skill, and like any other skill, it can be learnt. When we see a skill, we mean it's not a talent, it's a skill that can be acquired, that can be honed, that can be learnt. A skill is something that you can learn. Okay? So, but as you all know, for learning any language, we need 4 skills. That is listening, speaking, reading and writing. And what comes first is listening. So if you want to improve your English, listen to more English programs. Listen to more English language, in the sense that if you're at home now, you can actually listen to more programs on the TV, on the radio, and listen to yourself speak. Whenever you're reading something, if you're still not fluent in English and still have not got a knack of speaking in good fluent English, listen to yourself speak. Speak in, read those words aloud. See how you're pronouncing those words. Try to pronounce them as you've heard them. Okay? So listening, then comes speaking, and comes reading and writing. So the thing is, what we do is we do it the opposite. We learn to write first. Especially when it comes to English, what do? Instead of learning to listen first, we learn to write. You know, earlier days or even now, in school when you enter, you're given a book and you are asked to write the alphabets, A, B, C, D. So you mug up on what comes after what, and you keep on writing. So that's what is happening to you people. All of you can write excellently, right? All your exams are in English, so you write beautifully. You can write pages and pages in English, right? And then you can read in English, because you are supposed to read for your exams. You're all English medium students, so you read and then you write. But what you don't do is listen and speak. That's the reason you have fallen behind in reading and in speaking and listening. You can do reading and writing quite well, but it should have been the other way. You should have learned to listen, speak first, then read and write. So it's all mixed up, but still now it's not too late. There are people who've learned to speak English much later in life. So if you know, if I have to tell you about some famous people, I could take the names of sportsmen like Dhoni, of Sachin Tendulkar, all these people, even Narendra Modi for that matter, our Prime Minister. When he first came into politics, or when he first became the Prime Minister, he was not so fluent. But as the days progressed, he picked up the language, because he started speaking more. When you speak more, you become better at it. So you have to actually listen more and speak more. So today we're going to concentrate on how to improve our listening skills. So We always think that when I say listen, it's not hear. Hello, do you hear me? You know, when they're testing a mic, hello, hello, do you hear? Is it okay? Hear? Okay? So that is hearing. They just want to see if their voice is being carried. That's why they say hello, hello, can you listen? Can you hear? So there's a difference between hearing and listening. Hearing happens automatically. Suppose there is something, now I'm taking this class and there's somebody drops something outside. Though I'm talking to you, I can still hear that. Right? But my mind is not on that. My mind is on what I'm going to say to you next. So that involuntarily what happens is called hearing. Whether you like it or not, you hear to some sounds. As the class is going on, I'm sure something is, if today you're at home, so something is happening at home, right? Somebody is cooking, there may be a TV going on in the background, or maybe your father is speaking, your mother must be making some sounds with the utensils, cooking, or the whistle of that cooker must be going off. You must be hearing all those things. But are you concentrating on that? If you are, then you're not listening to me. Because what you're concentrating, I hope, is what I am saying, and not on what is going on around you. That is hearing, and if you listen, or if you put your mind also to what you hear, this is called active listening. So active listening occurs, hearing occurs with or without your consent. You don't actually, did you hear that, you say. You don't say, did you listen to that? When something happens, when something falls, or when sometimes you hear a big thunder in the sky. You hear that and you're scared. Involuntarily, you hear that. You're not waiting for that to happen, right? But listening, you're actually waiting with your open mind, waiting to hear something. So listening is an action which you actually choose to hear. You actively concentrate on what you hear. So your brain is concentrating on what you hear. It is actually processing whatever words it has heard. But when you hear something outside or just hear the sound, you're not concentrating. There are people, when the class is going on, there will be windows and you'll be looking out of the class, you hear some footsteps going across, all your concentration will move from the teacher, from the lesson, to whoever is walking across, because you've heard those footsteps. That means your concentration is not on what is going on in the class, but on something that is happening outside. I'll tell you the reason for that also. So listening skills are something that will help you to listen effectively. So if we really are not able to concentrate, if we are not able to listen properly or understand someone properly, then we have to learn how to do it well. How to listen effectively is also a great skill. Most leaders, they are effective listeners. When you go to the collector or you go to one of these biggest high officials, do they start speaking the moment they see you? They'll say hello and then probably a namaste or whatever. You greet them, they greet you back, and they'll wait for you to speak. Why? Because they're great listeners. They've come to that position because they listen very well. And then you speak and they will try to understand what you're saying and probably reply with one word or one sentence. Because that's how great most leaders are. They are good listeners. They have become to that position because they listen very well. They are able to understand things very well. And they are able to process what is going on and then reply. But what do all of us do? We always want to speak first before we even listen. The teacher is asking something, we'll just answer something else. Because we have not been listening to what is going on. We are in our own world thinking of something else. You know why that happens? Because a person can speak only at the speed of 125 to 150 words per minute. But that is a good speaker, a fluent speaker can speak up to from 125 to 150 words per minute. 150 being too fast, I'm probably speaking about 120 to 140 words per minute. So, but what happens is our brains are very smart. They can process up to 600 words per minute. You know, that's why when we have this 100 news in 10 minutes, you know, in 1 minute they tell you 10 pieces of information. Very fast they speak. I'm sure you've heard this, you know, 100 in 1 minute. They have these news bulletins. So they speak so fast. You think we don't understand? Our brain can listen to everything. Whether it can process it or not is a different matter. So our brain is so intelligent that it can take up to 600 words per minute. And when somebody can speak only up to 150, so 3/4 of the time our brain is idle again. So what does it do? It starts looking for information here and there. So as the lesson is going on, if somebody is scratching, you will look at them. You hear that sound, you look at them. If somebody is walking outside the door, you hear that sound, you will watch who's going there. If somebody's pencil drops on the floor, class is seriously going on. But your mind, you will hear that pencil drop and you'll say, hey, whose pencil was that? Right? It happens, right? So, but that is because your brain can pick up these sounds in spite of listening to what is going on. Because your brain is so smart. It can actively listen to 600 words. So it keeps on going away. It keeps on wandering. But a good listener should be able to bring that brain back and say, no, you have to concentrate here. You have to listen to this, not listen to a pencil drop or somebody walking. So it is a conscious effort on your part to tell your brain to concentrate. So good listening, that's why they say is a skill. Because as it is just sitting there, open your eyes and sitting there is not listening. Listening is when you involve your brain with, you know, that is active listening. So the process of receiving, construction, getting meaning from and responding to spoken or non-verbal messages, to hear something with thoughtful attention, that is listening. Listening is not just hearing the words. Listening is when you listen, when you understand what is being said, when you can give feedback, when you can answer the questions after whatever has been spoken, or you can ask questions. If you have a doubt in your mind, you know, when a teacher always says, I love doubts, I welcome doubts. If you have a doubt, ask. Why does she say that or he or she say that? Because if you have a doubt, it means that you've listened to the lesson. It's only when you listen that your brain becomes curious. That's why we welcome doubts. Even the speakers on the stage, they say after this we'll have a question answer session and I would love for all of you to participate and ask me questions. Why do they say that? Because it shows that you have listened well. Okay, listening means you will have doubts. If you're just hearing, then it's just going from on top of your head. You will not have any doubts. So listening is to hear something with attention. That is listening, and hearing is to hear something without attention. It doesn't take any effort on your part. Now I just heard some telephone ringing outside. But I was not paying attention, but still my mind registered that, because even while I am speaking, my brain is still quite active. It takes in all the sounds. You know, my ear keeps on functioning, so it takes in those sounds. But I am not paying attention to that. So if you're listening and you hear somebody's telephone ringing, I'm sure all of your eyes will go to the person whose telephone that was. Right? Because you are not actually concentrating on a lot on the speaker. So why is it important? Why should you listen well? As you all know, as a student, we all have to listen because we are being taught something, and because we are being, we are learning something. As a student, all of us have to listen well. right? Otherwise, we may not understand the concept, or we may not remember the concept. We have exams that we have to give. So listening is an important thing. But listening is important for everyone, not just for students. Like that child, okay, and mother. Listening is important. The child wants to be heard. It says, listen to me, and the mother says, listen to me. So I'm sure this happens all the time, and I'm sure your mother must be telling you so many things the whole day. Do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. Are you actually listening? Probably yes, probably not, I don't know. But there are, your mother may be continuously speaking and you don't listen to her much. Your father may not speak much, or he might be listening more, but he might say a few words and you listen to him. You know why? Because you feel that your father listens more and whatever he speaks is probably right, and you will listen to him more because you trust a person who speaks less and who is continuously blabbering or continuously speaking. You feel half of it could be not so important. Not that it's nonsense, but it's not so important, so it's okay. You don't have to listen to them. So listening importance is it stimulates better speaking by the speaker. It's only when you listen can you speak well, right? When you hear the words, your mind absorbs those words and you can speak well. Otherwise, where will you get all those words from? Unless you're a good reader, unless you read a lot. So if you don't read a lot, next best chance is to listen a lot. And then a good listener learns more than an ordinary listener. Some students they concentrate in class. That means they listen in class. Then they don't have to worry so hard when they're studying, because they already understand the concepts. They don't have to work very hard to actually study it all over again during exams. So that's why we say concentrate now, so that if you listen carefully, you probably will not have to work as hard or work doubly hard when you're studying, because it's already there somewhere. A good listener detects prejudices, assumptions and attitudes. Okay, a good listener, sometimes there's so much in non-verbal gestures, right? Non-verbal, the way somebody is standing. A good listener can easily predict whether that person can speak well, or whether he's nervous, or whether they are boasting, or whether they are very meek people. A good listener can identify all these things, because listening is not only verbal gestures but also the non-verbal gestures. And communication is not complete without effective listening. So you have to listen carefully for communication to be effective. So what are types of listening? You all thought there's only one listening type, and so it's okay, we are all listening. So there are types of listening. Before we continue, we'll just have a short video, and you try and understand what active listening or good listening is all about.
We're going to talk about active listening skills. So let's get into the details. Hey there, I'm Alex Lyon, and I actually have a 1-hour course on effective listening skills for leaders. I will tell you more about that at the end of the video. So listening is so important, because good listening is probably the easiest way to connect with other people and build relationships. Active listening is the opposite of passive listening, and you have probably experienced this. The person you're talking to might technically be hearing some of what you're saying, but they are tuned out, they're on autopilot, they're just not mentally engaged with what you're saying. And as the speaker, this can be very dissatisfying, very discouraging when people really aren't paying attention to us. Like, why am I even talking in the first place? But active listening looks, sounds, and feels obvious. Active listening means listening completely. But before anybody does that well, there are two secrets, two prerequisites to active listening. Number one, you have to commit. You have to put aside whatever else might be distracting you and make listening a real priority. Good listening is first and foremost a choice that you make every time somebody speaks. Number two, it takes practice. Like any skill, you have to work at it. The good news is that listening is not mysterious or complicated. So let's talk about 4 qualities of active listening that you can put into practice. First, active listening involves nonverbal communication. And there are 2 sides to this. On the one hand, you're demonstrating that you're engaged in paying attention nonverbally. You put your devices completely away, you make eye contact, your body posture is open and oriented toward the other person. Now, on the other side, you're also noticing the speaker's nonverbal cues. There's an expression, you listen with your eyes. And part of that means you're noticing what's happening with the person visually on their mood or their emotion that they're showing. Do they look nervous, frustrated, annoyed? You can pick up on that by actively observing their nonverbal communication. Second, active listening involves verbal communication. Again, there are 2 sides to this. The most obvious part is asking good questions. Probably the most common pattern that good listeners demonstrate is that they ask a good question and then they let the speaker fully answer it. Like a good mental health therapist will ask thoughtful questions and then stop talking for a while and let the client speak. Honestly, what we're paying for in many cases is just somebody to listen carefully to us. So a good question is a huge part of the listening pie. And the other part of verbal communication is those small utterances that show the other person that we're following them, like, I hear you, yeah, that makes sense. Sometimes it's not even full words, it might just be, oh. Those little utterances keep us engaged and show the other person that we're following. Third, active listening involves responding to what somebody just said. So the pattern goes like this. You ask a question, they respond for however long that takes, and at the end of that talking turn, you give an informed response to them. So let's say you just ask a person what they've been up to lately, that's your question. And in their talking turn, they tell you that they have been doing diving lately. So you actively listen for a while they're talking. At the end of their talking turn, it's your turn again. And this is where you show that you were actively following along and were interested in what they were saying. And you can do this by reflecting back what you just heard. You might say something like, wow, that sounds like an exciting sport. That's really cool that you're doing that. Or you could ask another follow-up question. I had no idea that you were into diving. How did you first get into that? Of course, you could do a little bit of both, like I just did. You could make an informed, reflective statement and then ask a follow-up question. The key is to respond to what they have just been saying. What you don't want to do is just look at them blankly and not react when they're done talking. And you've probably had somebody do this to you. You tell them about part of your day or something about your life, and they don't react. They just have this stone face. That's not active listening. If you want a gold star for active listening, then you have to respond to what they just said. Fourth, keep the focus on them and let them talk. Now this one might seem obvious because you're listening, but when you decide to go into that listening mode, just make a decision that this is going to be all about the other person talking and not about you. Resist that temptation to jump in with your own story or to change the subject to your favorite topic. Keep your talking turns and questions concise, and then stick to whatever topic they're interested in. Now eventually, once they've done plenty of talking, there will usually be an opportunity later in the conversation for you to share your experiences. But my rule of thumb is to dedicate at least the first half of the conversation to pure active listening. So I hope these 4 tips help you listen completely in your next conversation. Question of the day, which one of these tips do you need the most work on? I would love to read what you have to say below in that comment section.
Okay, so active listening, right? I'm sure all of you have been through that experience he's talking about, right? Let me give you one more example. You go to a doctor, you're not well, and you go to a doctor, right? And the doctor's place, you tell him, doctor, I have this fever and I have this cough. And if the doctor says, okay, and then he quickly writes a medicine, gives it to you, and you come back, and then you probably take that. But you go to another doctor and then you tell him, I have this fever and I have this cough. Oh, and he says, for how long? And then you tell him how long and how you've been coughing the whole day, or whether the fever is coming up and going down and things like that, going up and coming down and things like that. And he says, okay, what have you been eating? Or, and then you give him some more information and he's listening carefully to. So after all this, a lot of responses from you, and then he writes, after listening carefully to what you said, and then he writes a prescription and gives it to you. So who are you satisfied with? The first doctor who said, okay, I know what you're talking, and he gave you a prescription, or the doctor who listened to you carefully, asked you a few more informed questions, or what do you eat, what did you do before, or something like that, and then writes. I'm sure all of you will say that the second doctor was much better, right? Why? Because you feel that he was actually listening to you, to your whatever you're saying, that he understood what you were saying, he was processing what you were saying, and then he wrote the prescription, right? So all of us like people who listen to us, right? We like people when we are speaking, even our friends, we make those friends who will listen to us. We will not keep friends who we feel are not listening to us, and they are speaking all the time and they're not concentrating on what we are saying. They are only interested in what they are saying. Do we like such people? Probably not. We like friends who listen to us. Why? Because listening is something that all of us want other people to listen to us. Similarly, a teacher, when she's teaching in class, she wants you to listen to them. Okay, if you have that stone face where you just, blank face, you keep your eyes and ears open, and nowadays I learned that people can sleep with their eyes open also. This is a skill that so many students have developed, I believe. So I'm amazed at what people can do to escape listening. So what I want to tell you is that there are mainly listening is divided into 4 kinds of listening, or 4 types of listening. Yes, the second doctor, ma'am. I got that response also. I'm sure all of us want to be listened to. We want people to listen to us. So what are these 4 types of listening? Discriminative listening, pretense listening, selective listening, and attentive or active listening. So what is discriminative listening? Discriminative listening is difference between, when you identify difference between various sounds, it also difference between familiar and unfamiliar language. Suppose I'll give you an example, you'll understand this better. You're traveling somewhere, you're traveling in a bus, and you can hear there's 2 students sitting in the front and 2 students sitting at the back. Okay, these 2 students who are sitting in the front are speaking in Telugu, which you can understand very well. The people sitting behind you are speaking in Malayalam, which you probably cannot understand. So which one will your mind tend to listen to? You can hear both of them at the same decibel level. One is right behind you, one is right in front of you. So what do? Do you concentrate on something that you don't understand? Will you try and listen to what is going on in Malayalam? Probably not. You will listen to more of what is going on in the people sitting in front of you, because your brain is discriminating. I'm not understanding this, I will not listen to this, I will listen to this. Right? You will probably be hearing the sounds, but still you will not be listening. So this is called discriminative listening, where we choose to listen to something. Okay, and there's another example I can give you also. This is also when I'm traveling in the bus, I noticed that there's a lot of sound going on in the bus. Somebody has got their earphones or the cell phones on with or lots of music or something like that, and then suddenly somebody has a phone, get a phone call. In all this noise, they can hear to what the speaker is saying. Why? Because discriminative listening. They are able to concentrate only on what is coming from the cell phone, and they have actually zoned off whatever is going on in all that big noise is not making a difference. They can clearly listen. So so this is called discriminative listening, and we do that all the time. We try to listen to what we want to listen to. We sort of zone out of things we don't want to listen to. Then we have pretense listening. This, I am sure all of you know what this means, right? And we know what this means because this is what most of the students do all the time. They pretend to be listening, in the sense that it involves hearing. I'm sure you're hearing the teacher's voice, but are you actually understanding what she's saying? That is a different matter altogether. So, pretending through facial expressions that one is listening when one is actually not. Sometimes you have that facial expression on your face that the teacher, I'm sure, can find out whether you're actually listening or not. So this is pretense listening. Pretense listening, you think you're pretending, but the speaker, whoever it is, whether it's a teacher or a guest speaker or any other speaker, they can easily tell by looking at your body language, looking at your face, whether you're pretending to listen or actually listening. Maybe you can fool them for a few seconds or a minute or two, but you cannot fool them all the time. So pretense listening is something we must try and avoid doing. Even when your mother is telling you study, 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 you will just keep nodding your head as if you're listening, but actually you're concentrating on the TV, whatever is going on there, right? Or she'll be saying something, do this, do that, do that. You will say, okay, 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 as if you're listening, but you're not listening to her. You're actually concentrating on your music or on the phone or something like that. So that is pretense listening. And then we have selective listening. And we also, like I told you, we also listen to what we like. We may not listen to things that we do not like. So this is called selective listening. It involves selecting a desired part of the message and ignoring the undesired part. Okay, somebody says, hey, tomorrow there's an announcement, tomorrow we are all going on a picnic, but before that I want you all to hand over all your homework books and all that, and finish this project and hand over your books. You will only listen to the first part. Tomorrow we are going on a picnic. You will choose not to listen to the second part where I said you have to hand over all your project books, complete the work and hand over. Because that is, you're doing selective listening. You only listen to words you like to hear, not something else. You know that this happens most of the time when somebody is criticizing you or when somebody is giving you feedback. You don't take it properly because you use the selective listening. What did the teacher say? Nothing, yeah, the usual. She just said something about my handwriting, not, well, that's okay. Because you were actually not taking the whole information. You were doing selective listening. So, selective listening is also, sometimes it is good because, like I told you, when I heard the phone ring in the background. So, why did I not concentrate on that? Because I'm concentrating here. What I'm doing is, I'm doing selective listening. I'm not concentrating on whatever I'm hearing from outside. So that is selective listening. So selective listening is good to a certain extent where you ignore other things, but it's not always good to have only selective listening and only take in parts that you want to. So it can have its advantages and disadvantages. You should know when to do selective listening. When sometimes the teacher is teaching an important point, that's the time you should do selective listening. If the teacher is talking about just the weather or something, you can just ignore it or you may not listen carefully. That's okay. So you should know when to do selective listening. So there's something, it's a special hearing aid. It's a special hearing aid. It filters out criticism and amplifies compliments. That is selective listening. When somebody is speaking nicely about us, we like to listen to that. But when somebody is commenting or bringing out our drawbacks, then we don't know. That is selective listening. And this is the most important of all. This is active listening. This is what we want to learn. This is what we should learn. This is what is important. Active listening. So what is active listening? It is used for active listening, as you already saw in the video, is how you listen with all your concentration. He's given you some tips on how to concentrate. I'd give you further more tips is focus. Focus on the speaker. Whenever you want to actively listen, focus on the speaker. Think about only what they are saying. Don't think about anything else. And generally for active listening, it is good to make a note. Why do we ask you to write notes when something is going on? Because while writing, your mind is not wavering off and thinking about something else. It is again the little, I told you, it can concentrate or it can process about 600 words per minute. In the meantime, it is concentrating on writing. Again, the same topic. The same thing is reiterated, reinforced. So your mind is able to concentrate. So make a note. That is an important way of listening well. And then avoid being judgmental. Whenever you listen to something, don't immediately say this is good, I don't like it, or I don't agree with what they are saying. That is being judgmental. Listen, whether you agree with them or not doesn't matter, that you can decide later. But listen carefully first. Okay, so stop being judgmental and don't interrupt. When somebody is speaking, do not interrupt. Of course, you can ask questions, but when the person says you're ready to ask, if you think that you're going to forget the question, make a note. Write it down somewhere. What is the question you wanted to ask? And then when the teacher or when the speaker says, okay, now ask questions, you can ask those questions. That is the quality of a good listener. And always show your interest. You're listening to something, show that you're interested, because that feedback the speaker gets and he's more motivated to do better than what he is already doing. So these are some of the tips you must follow when to become a good listener. So a good listener should fully concentrate, understand, respond, and then remember what was said. Okay, these are good tips on good listening. Can we have the other video, please?
Think about how much information you get every day from listening. Your boss, your colleagues, your clients, and your suppliers may communicate with you often. So will your family and friends. How much of what all these people say do you pay attention to? How much are you actually remembering from these conversations? Chances are, it's a lot less than you think. A lot of times we act as if we're listening to the other person, but the reality is that our minds are racing to other topics or already planning what we're going to say in return. This means that we can miss important things that the other person is saying. Active listening is when you make a conscious effort to hear and understand people so that you get the complete message. There are several things you can do to become an active listener. First, you need to pay attention. We know this is a bit obvious, but it's the most important part of active listening. For instance, make eye contact with the person talking to you. Ignore outside factors like other conversations so that you can focus solely on what the person is saying. Most importantly, put your own thoughts on hold. Resist the urge to start planning out what you're going to say in return. You also need to show the other person that you're listening to them. You can nod your head, smile, and say yes occasionally. All of these signals let the other person know you're still with them. Providing feedback on what the other person has just said is another important part of active listening. For instance, all of us hear information through our own personal filters and judgments. This can affect our understanding. To make sure you heard and understood the message correctly, paraphrase it or repeat it back to the person. You can also ask questions to get more information, but make sure that you listen to what they're saying before you plan your response. You also need to avoid interrupting when they are speaking. Once they're finished, you can respond appropriately and with an honest answer or opinion. Active listening is a skill that all of us should use more often. The better you are at listening, the more information you'll receive. This can pay off with big rewards in your career and strengthen your bonds with family and friends. You can find out more about active listening in the article that accompanies this video.
So you see how important active listening is? So active listening is not only for students. As you go ahead in your career, you might get into a job, or even with family and friends, in relationships, active listening is important. I'm sure you've heard your mother or father say, "You're not listening to me, you're not understanding what I'm saying." So if you're an active listener, you will do well in your relationships too, maybe friendship too. So active listening is something all of us should develop. If you're not already an active listener, try to develop active listening skills, and this will help you not only in as a student but as a person. So it is important to reflect smoothly, and phrases like "I understand it," whatever you're saying. So your point is that, that's why we say in group discussions also, listening is very important. We covered the topic group discussions. Even there, listening is as important as speaking. You have to understand what the other person is saying and then respond. You can say, "So your point is that," or "Oh, that this is what I understand from what you're saying. What you mean is," you can use such phrases to show the other person that you are understanding what they are saying. So benefits of active listening is it enhances productivity, it improves relations, and I already said, if you're a good listener, you will respond appropriately and you'll have good friends, even at home you will be happy, and then improves understanding and improves negation skills, helps you stand out. When you're a good listener, you automatically will respond correctly. So it will help you stand out, and people will appreciate it. Everybody likes a good listener. Today we have lots of people speaking and nobody listening. Right? So if we want to stand out, we want people to like us, we have to listen more. I'm sure even the teacher likes a student who is listening actively and who is able to respond to her questions. So people will like you if you listen more. So try to listen actively, whether it's at home, at school, wherever you are, with friends, with family, in whichever profession you are. Listening always helps. Listening actually gives you a lot of information. So active listening is good for your careers. So techniques, as I already told you, focus on the key points. Focus on whatever is being said. Be aware of both verbal and non-verbal gestures. Sometimes we already saw that communication is a lot through non-verbal gestures. So notice even the non-verbal gestures. Listen with an open mind. Don't go with "Oh, this topic I cannot understand. Oh, this subject is very difficult. Oh, that topic is boring. Oh, that speaker is boring." Never go with preconceived ideas or notions, or don't be judgmental. You never know what is in that topic that might interest you. If you go with a closed mind, I'm sure you will not be able to listen effectively. So always have an open mind. Avoid false attention and pretending to listen. Don't pretend to listen. That's what I tell students. If you are not well or if you cannot listen, just put your head down and sleep. That's better than pretending to listen, because you're actually not listening and you're not getting rest also. If you're sick or it's some other problem, I always tell my students, if you're sick, you cannot understand, you have a headache, please go to the back of the class, put your head down. Maybe that half an hour of rest will do you good. For the next class, you'll be able to listen attentively instead of sitting there pretending to listen. So do not do that. Wait for the speaker to pause to ask for questions. Don't interrupt all the time, because even the speaker has a flow. So make a note and ask the same question again, even after a little while. That shows the quality of a good listener. And be attentive but relaxed. Active listener does not mean all the time with your eyes open and waiting to listen. No, it does not mean that. It means that you're paying attention, you're listening, you're processing what is going on, and you're ready to ask questions if you don't understand or give feedback whenever it is needed. That is active listening. So be a whole body listener. Stop talking, stop thinking also. When you're listening, stop thinking. Remove distractions, whatever, you may be attending this class, maybe the TV is in the background. Surely your mind will go to that, right? So remove those distractions, close the door. Do not, if you're listening on the laptop, do not have your cell phone nearby. Okay, so all these things, remove all the distractions. Do not let your mind wander. Do not be prejudge and be patient. The speaker is trying to convey something. Try to understand that and empathize with the speaker. You could also be in the speaker's place one day. What will happen if you stand in front of the class and nobody wants to listen to you? Very bad, right? You'll feel very embarrassed, right? So try to be in the speaker's place and try to listen attentively. Be a good listener. So thanks for listening. So see you all in the next class. Bye.